there seemed to be a lot of support among people who call themselves liberal, secular, leftist, who many of us in the international community normally identify with. And so it caused a lot of confusion among some people. Which side should you be on? I have to say for myself, speaking strictly for myself, I did not have that confusion, because I think there are two basic issues that were happening in Egypt which determined which side you're on. The first issue is, do you or do you not believe in basic principles of democracy? The Brotherhood won the election. Now, if people became dissatisfied with them, they had an opportunity 6 months later to vote out the Brotherhood in the parliamentary elections. There was no possibility at all, there was no possibility that the Brotherhood was going to cancel those parliamentary elections. So you just patiently wait until the next election. Now, it is true that if you're a real Democrat, democracy means more than just elections. That's true. But elections are a minimum condition. They're a necessary condition. If you're going to start annulling elections, there's not going to be democracy. So that was the first principle that was at stake. But there was a second principle, in my opinion, and that second principle is, do the rights and do the votes of poor Muslim people count in this world? There is, especially among secular people who call themselves liberal and left, the attitude that Muslims are backward, they're stupid, they're primitive, they believe in ridiculous things like God, the women are repressed, and therefore they really don't count. So it's basically democracy if you think like us, if you act like us, or if you accept us as being the most enlightened people in the room. And if you don't accept us as the most enlightened people in the room, then you really don't count in this world. And so that was the second principle that was at stake. Do the rights of poor Muslims in particular, do the rights of poor Muslims count? So in those two principles, the general principle of democracy, and then the more particular principle of the rights of Muslims, poor Muslims, the respect that they deserve, on those two issues, to me, it seemed pretty clear, it seemed very clear, that what was happening in Egypt was terrible. Now, I have to say, coming to Turkey now, I felt like I was coming to a funeral, because I felt it was all over in Egypt. The revolution had been defeated, the counter-revolution had succeeded. And so I didn't quite know what was the point to coming to Turkey at this point, except to give a funeral oration. But I have to say, coming here, I changed my opinion. I got to speak to members of the Muslim Brotherhood, people who were active in Rabia Square. They were smart, they were still committed, they're still hopeful, they're still thinking, and most important, in my opinion, they are willing to see the Brotherhood made many errors, a huge number of errors. They said the Brotherhood was an underground organization for 80 years. It's very hard for them to change. That's true of anyone. I'm going to be 60 years old. It's very hard for me to change. So I can understand an organization that's 80 years old. It's hard to change. But you get the feeling they're open to criticism. They recognize they made big errors. And most important of all, They can still turn out big crowds in Egypt. They're still fighting. And so that gives me hope that maybe they can turn things around a little, and those wonderful events that began on July 25th, 2011, there still may be a bright future for the people of Egypt and the people in the Middle East in general. So I'm very grateful to have been invited here. And I have to say, because it's true, and it should be publicly acknowledged, that sometimes people get obsessed with the surfaces. They see headscarf, they see primitive, backward. I met many Muslim women here. They're so smart, so energetic, so committed, so committed. It's deeply inspiring. And I wish more people in the West, in particular the West people who call themselves secular and liberal and leftist, that they have the same opportunity as me to meet these women and to stop just looking at the surface and seeing people's hearts, their souls, but also their brains. Smart women, smart and committed. And I wish that could be seen more.